How's it going, YouTube? Today I have a video commentary from this past weekend where I took this Memento list to locals. All in all, I really enjoyed it. I thought the build was great. The only issues I had were sometimes just not drawing any monsters at all. So I made some adjustments and I'm currently really happy with the updated version of this list. I basically ended up changing the double talents in the main to be a copy of Rhoda and one less card. Now the math is at something like 89% for opening up a one card combo, which is really good. It's also at 89% for opening up with a breaker, which is pretty strong in my opinion. I didn't really miss the second twin in my extra deck. I think most people are off of the Kashira Unicorn stuff now. So going forward, I'm just going to choose to not respect that deck. And if I play against it, I play against it. It is what it is. The one Dark Ruler I have in the side here was like a last minute addition. I really didn't know what to put in as the 15th slot. It could have been a Chaos Hunter, but that day I literally had Dark Ruler sitting on the top of my pile, so that's what it was. Like I said, it could have been Chaos Hunter. Going forward, it is just going to be talents for me though. And then the only other card that I switched out was I put in this Mischief of the Gnomes. It used to be a dimensional barrier as like a thrust target, but this is also a thrust target. It's also something you can send off of Foolish Burial Goods, and it's not a crossout target. So in theory, it should be better than D-Barrier for the Ryzeal matchup. I don't know how well that's going to translate in actual games, but it is something I'm testing out. Without further ado, that's enough for the deck update, and let's get into the games. Alright, here we have round one. This is going to be a mirror match, Memento versus Memento. And you'll see me win the dice roll. I got a 7 and my opponent got, what is it, a 4. So I will choose to go first here. My opening 5 is something like 3 or 4 non-engine plus a Dark Blade, so it's pretty strong. I'll start off normally Dark Blade, using the effect to summon out the Witch, and at this point, my opponent's shocked. He's like, whoa, no way you're playing this, and he shows me a Memento Fusion in his hand, letting me know that it is a mirror match, and I don't have to explain every card. He knows what the hell to do. But anyways, we're going to Dark Blade into Witch, which is going to add the Tatsu. Tatsu will summon itself, and then I'll use the effect to destroy itself, dumping Mace, Goblin, and Sheep. Then I can use the Witch to reborn the Mace, and the Mace effect to destroy itself and summon or search for fusion. And then after this, I can then activate my fusion. He's gonna look at my grave for a second here, but my next play is going to be to activate fusion. We'll put back the horse, the Dark Blade, and the Mace. And then that will summon the King from my extra deck. King is gonna activate its effect, dumping a copy of itself, Gaddock, and Akihiron to the grave. And then this will trigger the Gaddock to summon itself out here. And then I was just showing him the 3 cards I dumped. Gaddock will summon itself and add the Sheep. After that, I can go effective the King and get the copy of a field spell to my hand, and then just activate it right away. Because my next play is going to be to summon the Sheep from my hand and fuse away for a Twin Dragon. Now I can trigger the Twin, destroying itself to add a copy of Horned Dragon and the Combined Creation to my hand. And this will let me get 3 triggers here. I'll get my Twin, my Field Spell, and my Akihiron. So Aki will summon itself, the Twin will summon the Goblin, and the Field Spell will summon out a Sheep. Now I can use my Fusion, get some follow-up here. We'll pop the Akihiron and grab a Bone Party, and then the Akihiron will activate to add back the Fusion. Now I can kind of start with all the link climbing. So I'll link my 2 monsters off, the Goblin and the Sheep, for a Cross Sheep. And then I'll activate the Bone Party in my hand, destroying the Combined Creation I added earlier in order to summon out another Goblin from my deck. It's kind of important here that you summon a Fiend, otherwise you lose a little bit of the follow-up interruption on your opponent's turn. And he's just reading Cross Sheep because he actually didn't know that the monster, when you trigger the effect, it doesn't have to be the type of monster that's summoned. So as long as it already points to a fusion, it doesn't have to be when a fusion monster is summoned to its arrow. It's just when any monster is summoned to its arrow. So this is going to let me trigger the Cross Sheep, bring back another Goblin. It also could have been the Gaddock here. It just has to be any Fiend so that I can link away both of them for a Yama. Now, Yama isn't actually going to search anything. Oh, sorry, hold on. I forgot that I do activate the Goblin here. Let me put some more unique names in the graveyard by popping the Fusion, since we don't really need it on the end board. Then we link into Yama. The Yama is just there as some follow-up on my opponent's turn. I can go Foolish Burial Goods here because I have the hand to play kind of greedy. This could send the Blackout Laughs so that I can set it off my Griffin. but I'm just going to send a call by. It's just a generically good card. I'll summon the twin so that the griffin, or summon the dragon so that the griffin is pointing to something, and then we can go griffin effect, pitching this Book of Eclipse to set the called by instead. And then at this point, he's just reading the griffin because I'm assuming he doesn't play it in his build if he's picking it up to read it. And then I will link off the griffin and the dragon for sequence, since griffin is a late fiend. And then we're going to put back the cross sheep and the extra copy of goblin to make Baphomet. Baphomet's just going to send the goblin right back, and then we can link away for SP. SP here is going to banish the griffin, which means I can summon it back at any point on my opponent's turn using the Baphomet in the graveyard. Now I'm going to shuffle back 5 names in order to summon out the combined creation. And then I believe I end up setting some cards and just passing my turn. Yeah, it's set 4, and then in the end phase I get to set the Bone Party, and then I pass it to him. This is like, it doesn't really, I mean, I guess it seems like a lot because it's a lot of back row, but a lot of the interruptions are from the monsters that I'll be bringing back from my graveyard. So he just wants to read the Baphomet, make sure that I can bring back, like he's just confirming it's going to bring back the griffin when he like starts playing into my board a little bit. And I'm just kind of explaining the combo to him because he hasn't seen it before, which is fair. I don't think this is like super popular for Memento. But anyways, he draws, and his hand's a little awkward. He does have to start by normal summoning out the Gaddock here in a second. He's just asking for some interruptions and taking out his play. But we'll see here in a second. He's just going to end up normal summoning the Gaddock. Any second now. Yeah, I got this on 1.5 speed, and still, you know, it's like 45-minute matches, so it does take some time. But yeah, he normal summons the Gaddock, no effect, obviously. Chains the Grand Breakout in order to summon a Goblin from his deck. I'm assuming that's his only real way to play. So he's going to summon Goblin. On res, I'll use the Combined Creation to bring back my Creation King. And now I have a pop live. I wanted to use that early before I summon the Griffin, making sure that I would be able to. He goes Goblin effect, and I chain my SP to banish it. This way, he has to chain a Bone Party, or he's not getting to resolve it. On a new chain, or like after that resolves, he'll try and summon the Tatsu from his hand, and I'll chain my Baphomet to summon out the Griffin. And he just concedes from there. It can't activate the Tatsu effect, and I'm assuming he has no way to deal with the Griffin at this point. So that's it for game 1. Alright, so game 2, my opponent is starting this time. So now it's my turn to play into his, full Memento board. But I do get to start with a Fua in his standby phase. Normally this would be really good, but as you'll see, he does have the call by for it. So that means I have the non-engine in my hand. I think honestly, it might be like Fusion Talents or something. And then I have Darkblade and Witch. And then he goes normal summon Witch, add the Sleepy, so I know I have to kind of basically play into his full board. And I also know he definitely has Tatsu already in his hand if he's adding the Sleepy off of the Witch. Which, as you can see, he goes Tatsu to summon and then Tatsu to dump 3. He already has the sheep, so the third one is going to be another Anguish instead of the sheep, obviously, because it's in his hand. I guess it still technically could have been the sheep, but I feel like more people are not on 2 sheep than people that are on 2 sheep. Anyways, literally the same combo, which is going to bring back Mace, and then Mace kill itself to add Fusion. And then this is where it kind of varies a little bit. He's going to opt to summon the sheep from his hand in a second here, instead of activating the Fusion. And you'll see why after he uses the sheep to summon. He hard drew the Gaddock again. So those two are going to fuse together to make the twin, and he's not going to summon the Gaddock here. He's only using the twin effect, which I think is fair. He's saving his bodies for when he's able to use them more effectively. I have no response. The only hand drop I play is Fua, and I didn't draw him Perm. So he's going to twin to add the Horn Dragon and the Combined Creation to his hand, and then the twin is just going to reborn the Goblin. Yep, this twin will grab the Goblin. And then his next play is just to activate the Fusion. This is going to use the Combined in his hand and shuffle back both the Twin and the Gaddock for a copy of the King. And now King is going to dump a copy of itself. It'll dump Aki Huron from the deck. And then he kind of thinks for a second on what the last thing he wants to send is, because he could send a Gaddock here, or he could just send another unique name. He ends up sending the Darkblade, which is fine. He hasn't used the effect yet. You know, if he gets the Darkblade back in rotation, he can summon the Gaddock off of that, or he can send the Gaddock off the Goblin that's currently on the field. Anyways, after that, he'll go banish the fusion in his grave to grab the copy of Mictlan, and then he'll activate the Goblin to pop itself and dump both Gaddock and another copy of the fusion. Now he can activate both Aki Huron and Gaddock here, so he'll be able to summon them both, and then the Gaddock will trigger on summon to add the maze back to his hand. I thought this was a little weird because I normally don't do this, but I realized after that's literally because I just don't play the Herald Link. Anyways, continuing on, he'll go Fusion to pop the Aki Huron and add Bone Party. He'll trigger the Aki Huron to add back the Fusion, and then Chainlink 2 will be the Mictlan to summon out the Goblin. Now he can link both of those into the Herald, same attribute, same type, and then he can summon the Dragon from his hand and link that and the King for SP. There's no point of using the SP banish. He doesn't have a birth mat in his grave, so it wouldn't make sense to do that. But he can shuffle back 5 for the combined creation now. So he's going to put back Goblin, Gaddock, Sheep, Witch, and Tatsu. So he's still keeping, I think he's got 4 or 5 unique names in the grave, which means even if I nib him here, he can go SP to save his Herald instead of the combined creation and just remake it again, which is pretty good for him. And then after he does this, he sets 2, and then goes to his end phase and sets a third with sets the fusion with the field spell. So now I know that the 2 cards on the left, one of them has to be Bone Party, and then the other one could be Imperm, it could be a Dead Talons, it could be a Goblin Breakout, or one of the Memento traps. Now I'm really hoping that it's not the Memento trap, because I can play through 1 Imperm, I cannot play through 5. If it's the Cranium Burst, like I just lose on the spot and like there's nothing I can do. But I'm kind of reading that it's Imperm, so I choose to start with Darkblade instead of Anguish here. And there's no reason to pitch the Anguish to try and pop something, because if it's Imperm, I get cooked. If he chains SP, I get cooked. Like, there's no reason to do that. So then I just end up using the effect to summon from deck, to which he does chain the SP, which forces me to chain Fusion here so that I don't just like lose my body and lose. He does not negate it with the Herald, which is fair. It's going to force me to summon Twin or King, and then I wouldn't get the unsummon effect, because it does get popped from the Darkblade. So I have to immediately pop my Twin without getting the search, and then summon a level 3 or lower from the deck. Now the options here are to summon another Anguish, which doesn't make sense because I'm about to get one back from grave, or to summon a Mace. I could summon Goblin, but I want him to think I have the Breakout in my hand. So I end up going for the Mace and then trigger the Twin to summon my Anguish. He chains his Creation King here to get a copy of he chains Combined Creation to get Creation King. Then on a new chain, I'll go Witch Effect to search, adding a Sheep, and on res, he drools me. This board was already hard to play through, but now I can't search for the rest of the turn. So this is going to be a challenge for sure. Now basically, the next line of play I'm thinking is I need to force out this Herald Negate. I can't continue to commit into the board when he has a Snatch Steal live in his hand, so I need to get that Mace out of his hand. The way I'm going to force this is by going Talents to take. He has to negate this with the Herald, because I'm just going to take his big guy or his Creation King and like be able to play like relatively freely. But I have the droplets to chain, sending both the Mace and the Talents to negate the Herald and the Creation King. So I don't have to worry about the pop for now until he activates Fusion. And I get to resolve my Talents and take one of his monsters. So I'm going to resolve the Fusion here and negate both the Creation King and the Herald. And then I will Talents take the big guy. Now in my head, I'm like, oh, as soon as I force more interaction, I can activate this Combined Creation and reborn another name for myself so that I can Sleepy Fuse without like losing 5k damage off the board. It turns out this was actually an illegal play. Looking back on it, like for this replay analysis, the Combined Creation is a soft once per turn per copy. So he already used the effect to Reborn, so even though I stole it, I can't activate the effect. It's already been used. But like this creation on the field was foreign, so neither of us really like read it to confirm that that was the case, and we just played on. Like I said, I realized this after. But I'm going to go along the line of play I'm thinking here while I'm trying to force out this board. So to get him to use the next card, I'm going to activate Witch to bring back Mace. This will cause him to activate Bone Party in order to summon from his deck. He's going to try and get some pops live on the board before I can activate the Mace once I bring it back. Which just makes a lot of sense, except for the fact that we're under his roll. So he's going to end up making a misplay here that I don't know if I would say it cost him the game, because I think I was in a relatively like pretty good position to continue playing even without it. But you'll see in a second. So he activates Bone Party to summon out Gaddock, and he'll go, I get to be Chainlink 1 creation to summon back any guy. I don't care who it is, it just has to be a name I confuse with. And he'll go Chainlink 2 Gaddock to add the Bone Party back to his hand. Now here, he's kind of thinking on res if he wants to do anything before I activate Mace Effect. And he's triggering his field spell to bring back the Horned Dragon. So he actually technically can't trigger it there. It was something he forgot, but like it's a locals, I'll let him take it back, I don't care. And now his play makes a lot more sense. Because now I go activate Sheep in my hand, and he chains his fusion to fuse away by shuffling the Mace and using the Gaddock on field. Which I'm now realizing he just shuffled the Gaddock into his deck, and it definitely just goes to graveyard. But he'll summon his own twin. I'll summon my Sheep, and then I'll go Chainlink 1, Sheep to fuse. And then we realize we're under draw, so he can't Chainlink 2 twin. I think it was still more correct here for him to make another Creation King instead of twin. But it's very real possibility that he doesn't play 2. So, or doesn't play 3 rather. So it makes sense why he was forced to go for twin here. Which is just unfortunate because of the draw. So he couldn't Guardian Chimera me. He can't twin. He doesn't play 3 Creation King, so he can't go for that. So the only option was like Dragosepelia, which I would have been able to play around if I had changed Sheep to the combined effect to summon. That way his fusion would like miss, like it would be too late to stop the Sheep fuse. But anyways, that's going off on a whole other tangent of like hypotheticals, you know, what would have happened if we had done this play properly. Anyways, I resolve the Sheep, fuse for Creation King, dump 3 including Akihiron, and then I force out his last back row by going Creation King to pop itself in the back row, letting me summon, and then I can shuffle back 5, put my own combined creation on the board, and attack directly for 10k. So, all in all, I think I was still in a good spot to win this game, and we'll just move on to round 2 now. Alright, and now we're on to round number 2 rather, and you'll see me win a dice roll, which normally would be phenomenal. The only issue here is when I look at my hand, I just don't have a monster. So I literally look at my hand, he draws his, and I'm like, alright, let me someone and pass. So I actually, when I got home that night, I sat down and did the math, and those changes I made at the start of my video to my deck were because of this match. I was just like, if I ever play another game and I just don't draw playable for this, like this many times in a row, like I just don't want to play. Like I need to fix something about the deck. Anyways, I saw him pass. He goes draw, stand by main, sure. Normal summon ice. I'm like, I'm sick right now. This is so tough. Ice into sword, sword into X. And then he's going to, I'm just reading X to like clarify that I can just summon whenever the hell you want, which it can, sadly for me, because on the summon of this duo drive, I'm just going to hit it with the Book of Eclipse. I don't want him searching for cross. I'm already in a really tough spot because I had to literally pass my turn. So if I top deck a monster, I needed to be able to resolve. And he's just thinking what he wants to make. If he's going to make a detonator to try and pop my card first, or if he's just going to go duo drive. On the summon of the duo drive, I book it. Like I said, can't let him be getting that search. Next, he's going to summon X, and then that will search his deck for the node. And then, sorry, he has to send the aggregator to summon his X. He grabs node, summon node from hand, and then he will be able to overlay those two for a detonator. And then on the summon of the detonator, he will add back the X and whack me for 3k. And I live to see another day. This top deck has to go crazy. So yeah, the detonator will attach the aggregator and he'll poke me for 3k. I already did the damage. I knew it was coming. Yep, take the 3k. He sets one and passes. And I'm like, thank God I only have to deal with one back row. Like, this is doable if I top deck a playable monster. He does get to flip and draw his duo drive in the end phase. But it is what it is. Like, I would rather have draw a random card than have cross and draw a random card. So I start my turn. Drew playable. We'll imperm the detonator. He has cross out for the imperm, which sucks. But I have droplet send imperm to make sure that that detonator stays negated. This will resolve. He'll banish his imperm. And then I will just straight up normal summon the goblin from my hand. Hopefully he doesn't have a Veiler, but even if he does, I have my breakout spell, so I'll be fine. He lets the goblin resolve here, which is great, because now I can send Gaddock and Sheep. I'm just kind of weighing my options, thinking if it's worth going Gaddock Tatsu, but there's not really a point in sending Tatsu if I've already used the Gaddock, because it can only send monsters, right? So I do just end up going Gaddock Sheep here. And then the Gaddock will trigger to summon itself back out. And then we're just clarifying all the effects because Memento's got too much text on him. The Gaddock will summon itself and then I'll add the Sheep back to my hand. Now I just go straight into summon Sheep effect diffuse. We're just making a twin. We're gaming. We're using the twin effect. We're adding 2 by popping itself. And then this, I believe, what does this give me here? This gets me like Horned Dragon and Tatsu. I don't really want to grab Combined Creation here because it's not live. And like I'm going to need these bodies to try and push through this board. The twin will also on res trigger to summon back the Sheep. There's a world where I go like summon Tatsu, use the effect, and that gets Astra Veilered. If it gets Veilered, I can chain the breakout and then pop the Sheep and still get 3 sends. So, but regardless, my next play is going to be Activate Fusion. I'll put back my whole graveyard and summon the the Creation King from my extra deck. And then the King is going to send 3. It'll send another copy of itself from my extra deck. It'll send Akihiron, and I believe the last send is Darkblade. I like sending Darkblade over Witch, especially when I haven't used it, because it just gets another name in rotation, and it's a little more flexible with what you can do with it. It also leaves Witch as an option to send off of Tatsu if something goes wrong here. Anyways, my follow-up to that fusion play is to banish the second king from my grave at the field spell, and then I'm just kind of explaining to him what the field spell does. You know, telling him it's like a reborn, sets a spell trap from grave and gets me, like, not an Armades effect, it's just for spell traps, but I mean, it still could come up very easily. Anyways, I activate my field spell, then activate the horse to summon itself, and then I go horse effect to pop a guy and Foolish. He's still got no hand traps here. So now I'm kind of thinking, well, if he's not shotgunning cards and he's got 5 in hand, it can't all be engine. So I'm pretty sure, like, I have a Soul Read that he has a Nib in his hand. So now I'm trying to sequence this line in a way where I can get enough names in rotation to summon the Combined Creation twice. So off the Tatsu, I send, what did I send? Like Witch, Mace, and Goblin. And then on a new chain, I go chain 1 field spell to Reborn, chain 2 Akihiron. And now I can chain block my Akihiron as well. So I'll go chain 1 Akihiron to attack directly, chain 2 Witch. Which is great. The Witch adds the Combined Creation to my hand. And then I go Witch effect to Reborn the Mace by popping my Sheep. Now I can trigger my Sheep as well to Foolish another name, which is going to be important. I'm trying to be able to summon my combined out twice, so it is like super vital that I get enough names in grave so I don't totally get smoked by Nib. Anyways, at this point, I go Banish Fusion to pop and search. I'm going to try and add Bone Party by popping the Akihiron. Like you saw in the last match, both of us were doing it. I would pop Akihiron, add Bone Party on a new chain, Akihiron effect, add back Fusion. This is great. Now I can go I'm thinking like, oh, do I go for SP and then I can like save my guys if he has the nib? And in my head, I'm like, that's a really good idea because now I can like make sure I have a bunch of follow-up and bodies. But I realize I can just go for the kill if I eat the nib. So I go activate mace effect. Yeah, see here, I'm about to link off. I'm like, wait a second. I think I actually just go mace, pop and search for a unique name so that I have more fodder to shuffle back with the combined creation. So I just add a dark blade. Like, it's also follow-up if something does go horribly wrong. But now I will just shuffle back 5. I can already attack directly, so I'm putting lethal on the board. This is 8k damage between combined creation and the king. I'm trying to leave as much unique names as possible in the graveyard so I can summon back my combined creation again. So I summon it out. I go, he picks it up to read it. He's making sure I can't like chain to summon or kind of dodge the nib somehow. And I say, yeah, I'm going to go battle phase. And what do you know? He's got the nib. So, alright, I planned for this the whole turn. I'm asking him where he wants the nib token, but I know it's not sticking around. I kept this bone party in my hand, and I have this horn dragon still that I can extend with. So I go special, the horn dragon from my hand, and the newest addition in my extra deck, I link away the light nib token and my dark horn dragon for a Lina. Now I go Lina, bring back detonator. Which, fun fact, the detonator activates on special summon, so it can attach from the grave. And I'm like, well, what name do I attach here? I don't know if it really matters, because like it just has to be a name that I like don't need to shuffle back. So I'm just kind of thinking. And I believe I attached like a horn dragon or something. Maybe it's a bitch. I don't know what it was. It doesn't matter because I end up linking them off for Celine anyways. There's 3 spells in like on my field. You know, I have my field spell, the droplet, and something else in my grave. The whatever it is doesn't matter. Plus the spells in his grave. Celine's gonna gain 3 counters and then summon back the witch. And then I can link off Celine and witch for access code. Gain 3k on the access code, and then go access banish to pop. So we'll get rid of the pesky nib. And then I'll just shuffle back 5 for the combined creation again. So I'm just thinking about which names I want to shuffle back here. And I think, well, I can technically get a little bit greedy. I can go Bone Party for a guy and then put the name in grave. And that way I can get a little more value out of, like, these shuffle backs. Like, because I can at least use my Bone Party. So I end up summoning Goblin here. Doesn't really matter. It's just a guy. It should be in defense mode. It has to come in defense mode off of Bone Party. But it doesn't matter because I have 10,300 on board and he's picking it up. He's like, wait a second, you could summon this twice? Yes, it has to shuffle back 5, so it's a pretty hefty requirement. There's no once per turn on how many times you can summon it, so he just scoops it up there. And now we're on to game number 2. Alright, now we are on to game number 2. My opponent gets to start and they lead with normal summon ice. This is going to be able to special the sword from their deck, and then the sword effect is going to add an X to their hand. After this, I kind of think, you know, what their next play, their line of play is, and they end up going for Dugaris to draw 2. I'm guessing that they're really trying to dig in their deck for a copy of Crossout in order to make sure that the Duo Drive resolves, which I think is fair. They end up discarding a Desires off the Dugaris, which lets me believe that they have another Desires in their hand, which is kind of tough for me. Next, they summon X by dumping Aggregator from their extra deck, and then they can go X effect to search, and then chaining 2 will be Aggregator to negate the Dugaris, chain blocking it from like a late Ash. Then they can add the node to their hand and special summon the node. Now they can go node effect, sending the Dugaris just to reborn the sword, just another level 4 body to play with. And then they can overlay those 2 for the Duo Drive. I don't know if they drew into Crossout or not, I honestly don't remember, but they get to activate the Duo Drive, and it unfortunately is going to attach and then detach 2 to add the cross to their hand. So they'll get a copy of Cross and then another copy of Sword because the special summon effect is still live. After this, they will activate the Cross in order to not be nibbable anymore. And then after that, they are able to special out the sword, overlay the sword and the EXT for detonator. And now the detonator effect can activate here and attach the aggregator from the graveyard. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, now they get to draw one, you know, end their turn. And like I have to play through detonator, like that's fine. Unfortunately for me, that was not the case here. As you're going to see in a second, they will... he dropped his card, but he's going to pitch a second Desires in order to summon an ice from his hand. And now he'll activate Plugin to Reborn one more. He did forget to use the second part of Plugin to attach another material to his detonator, but it didn't end up mattering here. He's able to overlay the 2 extra level 4s for a Dweller, and then he can put back both the Plugin and the Node to draw an extra card. So he's got 1 card set, 2 cards set, 1 in hand, and he's passing on Dweller Detonator. It is not looking good for me because in my draw phase, he activates the Dweller. Thankfully, I do have Droplet in my hand, but it's kind of awkward for me to use it. I really didn't want to use it in my draw phase, but I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I go Droplet. I have to send 2 here to negate both the Detonator and the Dweller. I end up sending the Gaddock, which was for sure the right call, and I send a Anguish, I sent Darkblade and held Anguish in my hand. This kind of like bit me later on in the turn because I really should have kept the Darkblade over the Anguish. He has an imperm here for the summon regardless, but if he had chained it to a Darkblade, I still would have gotten to pop here and it would have been a lot easier to play out my turn. I get to chain the Breakout and stop the Witch from being negated. He's thinking if he's going to respond to the Breakout, which he can, like, I guess technically detach from his Detonator, and then Aggregator will negate on any chain after I summon my guy, which makes sense. But he opts not to do it there, he's holding it. And so I'll summon out my Goblin, and I'll resolve my Witch. Normally you add Tatsu here, which would be good if I didn't have the Gaddock already used. So I try and add Sheep here. So I'm like, oh, I can go, you know, Goblin, Pop. Or sorry, I assume that I can use my Sheep here to summon it and fuse, but I can't because the guy hasn't been destroyed. This is why it was important earlier for me to hold the Darkblade instead of sending it off Droplet and, you know, switch that and the Witch around. Because I did it this way, I'm kind of getting punished. I go Goblin effect, he chains Veiler. I obviously can't do a second Breakout, and I'm in kind of a tough spot here. So I have a Talents and a Sheep in my hand. There's a world where I go Talents to draw 2 and kind of just hope I draw into like a Fusion or something I can activate. But that's really greedy and not the correct line of play. What I end up doing is Talents take because I'm thinking, oh, I can go like this whole line, you know, link off with the Detonator, make a Lina, bring back Detonator, make Selene, make Axis Cloak, clear his whole board. And like I'd be in a pretty good spot if I did that. But as soon as I go Talents to take, I realize I literally, like, as soon as I link off with the Detonator, the Aggregator is going to trigger to negate the Lina, so that whole line of play doesn't work. What I should have ended up doing, like, you know, looking back on this replay, is Talents take the Detonator, go Battle Phase, beat over the... Talents take Duo Drive, go Battle Phase, beat over the Detonator because it's halved from Droplet. Now he has no negate with Cross. Now I can link both of those into SP, negate or banish the Cross, and then slap a Typhon on top to out the Dweller. Now he can't draw because of the Dugars he used on his turn. He has no draw from the Cross, and he just has a back row and that's it. And now, in an even more perfect world, I would have added like Darkblade off of the Witch for follow-up, but I didn't do that because I just did not think that far ahead when I was, you know, thinking out this whole line in my head. So this Sheep is just like kind of dead in my hand, and I have to really top deck into playable. Now because I didn't see this line, I went for this line of play, which really did not work out in my favor. I make a Typhon on top after it gets negated by Aggregator. I hit over the Duo Drive, and then in main phase 2, I go Typhon, bounce the Dweller. So, you know, the line I said earlier, utilizing the SP, would have cleared everything, whereas this line left him with the Cross, which is really unfortunate for me. Because on his turn, this Cross is really gonna put in so much work. he goes to draw for turn. I'll remind him he can't because of the Dugaras, but he gets a draw off of cross. So, I mean, he's like at least still drawing for turn. I'm really hoping he just draws into nothing, but I am unfortunately not that lucky. He draws off of the cross, and what do you know? It's the third Pot of Desires. His one card just turned into two. He's like kind of hesitating a little on activating it, but you know, I mean, why would you not? Like you're on no cards, right? So he banishes 10, draws 2, and he draws 2 arguably like pretty good cards. Not specifically this turn, because as you'll see in a second, he tries to activate one of the cards he drew, which is Pot of Prosperity, but you can't activate the turn you draw off of a card effect. So I'm safe for now, but I know on the next turn he's probably drawing into Engine, so I have like one more turn at most to live. His other card was a Ghost Ogre, which he can normal summon and then slap a Typhon on top of his Typhon. Oh, it's my Typhon. So I'm just in a poor scenario here. I'm on top deck mode. I'm like, please, any monster does it. Any Memento monster gets me there. And it was not a Memento monster. I'm asking to look at his grave to see if there's like a potential play by maybe like crashing my sheep and sending. But once again, the Gaddock is in my graveyard, so there's not a lot for me to really kind of work with. At least if the Gaddock was in the deck, I could, you know, summon sheep, crash it, send the Gaddock, add back, follow up for the next turn, and hope that he doesn't draw into playable. But that's just not what's going to happen here. I have to normal summon my sheep, and then use the breakout to tribute it, and summon a goblin from my deck. This goblin is going to try and send, like, combine creation, just so I have a big 5k guy. But he has called by for the goblin that's already in grave. So, I mean, this game is just, like, I'm so cooked. I have goblin, he's got Typhon, he's got 2 draws off the top, or 1 draw plus prosperity, and I'm, like, so sure that I'm just about to lose this game. He draws for turn, and it's a bonfire, so I just scoop it up here. And now we'll move on to game number 3. I get to start again, and just like game 1, I'm gonna set one and pass. This is, like, when I talked earlier about going home and literally figuring out what was wrong with my deck, like, why am I bricking? This is exactly why. This happened twice in one match, and that hasn't happened to me yet with this deck. So I was like, I need to fix the consistency issues. I don't know, like, I'll change some stuff around and we'll see what the math says. Someone pass. He starts with Desires. Hopefully he banishes, like, cards he needs. That's not what happened. He drew into Ice, normal Ice for Sword, Sword for X. He makes Duo, and once again, I have to book on the summon of the Duo Drive. I really just have to hope that that's enough. I know he can still summon EXT from hand, and then keep going, but I don't have any other option. Just like game 1, I have to draw into a monster to be able to play, and or at least like a Bone Party something, because I'm pretty sure I have like Horn Dragon Thrust Talents in my hand, and a Gaddock. He summons his EXT, dumping the Aggregator, searches the node just like before, overlay the node in the EXT for a Detonator, attach the Aggregator, and then he whacks me for 3k. He gets to set 1, and then in his end phase, sorry, he sets 2. In his end phase, sets 3! Holy, I don't remember that. In his end phase, he flips the Duo Drive and draws 1, and I have to draw into something. I top decked into the Talents, so no playable cards right now. I have to literally normal summon the Gaddock, make a Typhon, and hope it gets in there. I go activate Typhon effect, or I guess I'm just thinking if I want to activate it. Yeah, activate Typhon effect, and he's got an Imperm for me. So Typhon's negated. I'm gonna go battle, like, make him detached from a guy. Sure. That, like, means next to nothing. I'll literally hit the Duo Drive, he'll detach EXT to protect it, and I think I get to, like, set one and pass, and I'm pretty clocked out of the game at this point. Like, there's a world where, you know, he misplays and I win, but I think that world is not very likely to happen. He starts his turn by activating Duo Drive, and there's nothing I can do about it. I have Called By and what was my other set? I think it was called by in the Dead Talents or something, or maybe the Thrust. I don't know, one of the two. But he adds another ice and the cross off of his duo drive. Then he activates the cross, and at this point, I know I'm dead. He activates cross, normal summons ice, and I definitely needed to activate my called by here on the ice already in his graveyard. There's no way for him to chain the detonator to pop my Typhon. So, like in this hypothetical, I could have potentially lived another turn, but I'm pretty sure he had extenders in his hand anyways, so I don't believe it really would have mattered at the end of the day. He just overlays those two for a Castel, spins my Typhon away, and then goes battle phase and attacks me for game. So the Castel is going to detach 2, put my Typhon back. Sure, I can make it again if I live, but he's just going to go battle and whack me. I try and force something out here with the call by. There's no way that I can ever accomplish anything, even though he takes the bait and uses detonator to pop. I don't play Waking the Dragon, so even if that was a Blackout Laughs, it wouldn't have mattered. He still just hits me with everything and I'm dead. And that's it for round 2. Alright, now we're on to round number 3. I end up losing the die roll here, so I'll be going second against Spright. We both draw opening 5. He goes standby main, and he starts with the forbidden combo: swap pitch angler. Chain 1 swap, chain 2 angler, or reverse order, doesn't matter because I didn't have an Ash anyways. But he will summon out 2 beavers from his deck here, and then the swap frog is going to send the mirror mage. That will let him search for the, what is it, Ice Barrier spell, I forget what it's called. But he's going to activate it to summon back the mirror mage right away, and now he can make a Toad before summon 5. So he gets to play around Nib. He gets to play around Imperm Nib, it's nice. He overlays the 2 beavers here for a gigantic effect. I have to let it resolve, and that's going to summon out a blue from deck. Then blue is going to get Jet. Then Jet effect will get him Smashers. Now from here, he's able to link off the blue and the gigantic for IP. I think it probably made more sense to keep the gigantic because it can at least do something. Whereas the Jet is just kind of a guy. There's no pressure from keeping the Jet over keeping the gigantic. But yeah, he'll link those 2 out for IP, and he'll set his Smashers and pass. And now I'll draw for turn. In the standby phase, he gets to get a swap frog off of his Toad. And then I will, so he'll get a swap frog, and then he doesn't use the effect, which makes me think he's got another swap frog in his hand. I don't remember if he actually does or not. I don't know if we can see it on the camera here. But anyways, I'll go to my main phase, and I'll start by activating Foolish Burial Goods. I'm pretty sure I have a Talents or something in my hand, so I'm really trying to get him to use the Toad, but he's not. So off the goods, I'll send Blackout Laughs. This can effectively turn the Toad off for a turn if I want to play, but my hand is literally unplayable. I bricked in the previous round in game 1 and game 3, and now game 1 of this match. So, I really had some work to do fixing this list. When you draw playable, it's really nice, but not drawing a monster really sucks. So I literally had to set 1 and pass and hope that my 1 set plus the Foolish Burial Goods was enough to get me there. I ended up setting a called by, so when he went starter in his draw phase to summon the blue, I was able to called by banishing the other blue, therefore negating it, and really just hoping that was enough. He overlays the blue and his swap frog for another gigantic, and that eats the imperm from my hand. He puts his Jet in attack mode, and he just hits me for a bunch of damage here. He's making sure that there's no other plays he can really do with his extra deck. I don't have any monsters in my graveyard for him to take with Mannequin Cat. I don't have anything for him to attack into with the Mosquito. So it literally just ends up becoming attack, and I'm not sure if he has any new back row to add into the mix, but he does not, so he just passes turn. So on my turn here, I drew into playable. I drew into Dark Blade, really great draw, but I made a really game-losing mistake by not activating the Blackout Laughs before I committed my normal summon. I should have banished my Blackout and called Toad. I knew he had the Smashers. Non-target removal is really hard for the Memento deck to deal with. So, like, I'm able to play around Smashers with this hand, but I cannot play around Toad Smashers. I chant my Bone Party here to at least, keep a body in rotation. I can pop my Dark Blade and search for, like, a Tatsu or something. But he tributes his Toad to negate, and I don't have a call by anymore. So I just, like, get smoked here. I think about my hand, can I do anything else? My Dark Blade's not getting destroyed, so I can't use the fusion. And I just concede here. Pack up my cards, and we'll try again in game number 2. This time, I will be going first. I lead off by going, stand my main, and I go Tatsu effect to summon from my hand. Then that goes through, I go Tatsu effect to pop. He uses an Ash here, which is really annoying because I do have a card to dodge if I really wanted to, but you can't dodge Ash, doesn't target. After this, I'm forced to use my Breakout anyways in order to summon a Goblin from my deck. I don't really have any other options with my hand. I have like another Horse and an Akihiron. So I kind of have to make sure that this play goes through. I go Breakout, summon Goblin, and then Goblin effect to pop and Foolish, and that eats an Imperm from his hand. Kind of a tough situation for me to be in, but I have one last push. He hits the camera there, apologizes. He's like so zoned into the game, or locked into the game, he forgot about it. Anyways, I go activate Foolish Burial Goods, sending Fusion, banish Fusion to pop my Goblin, and search for another copy of, or actually, I don't even need another Fusion here. I can get Bone Party because I have the Akihiron access already. So yeah, I do add the Bone Party, and then he draws me on res. I changed my Bone Party here. I really wasn't sure if I wanted to add to my hand or special. I've already, I haven't used my normal summon yet, so I could add to my hand. But there's nothing I can add to my hand that I wouldn't want to just special anyways. There's no Fua, so I'm not really playing around anything. So I just pop the Akihiron to summon Dark Blade from my deck. Dark Blade can be almost any other monster that I really want it to right now. So it just seems like the most flexible option. The Akihiron adds back the Memento Fusion because it was destroyed by the Bone Party. And now I can activate the Dark Blade to summon from my deck. I'm really just trying to load up my graveyard so that I can, activate the Fusion, not freely because I want to draw, but with less restrictions. I want to keep the Akihiron in the grave to try and keep some semblance of follow-up. And I know I'm not going to be able to build a really ideal board under draw after getting hit with Ash Imperm. So I'll go Fusion, shuffle everything except for Akihiron back because it can still float, and that'll summon my my Creation King. I have the Switch on board, so I want to send a level 2 or lower off of the King in order to be able to use the Witch Reborn effect and get some pops going so I can float back with Akihiron. So the way I'm gonna circumvent playing under this draw is by sending Gaddock and the Field Spell. That way the Field Spell can get me back one of the other spells so that I can continue playing on his turn. And I'm kind of thinking what I want the third send to be. There's no way I'm going to be able to put enough names in rotation to summon out the combined creation and have it be effective. So I'm trying to think it probably just has to be a level 1 or 2 in order to be able to summon it off of the Witch, because the Gaddock is going to bring itself back. So I believe I end up just sending a Mace. Let's see. Yep, it is just Mace. So now I'll be able to add back the Field Spell off the Goblin, activate my Field Spell, and I'm trying to think, how do I maximize on getting these bodies? There's a way for me to trigger getting 3 special summons here, but I need to get this Gaddock in the graveyard first, and the only way for me to do that is to link it off for any monster. I thought about Cross Sheep here, and there's a world where that was the right play because I do end up fusing by getting rid of a beast out of my grave, but drawing into a Tatsu on the follow-up by putting it back would have also been pretty good. Anyways, I link off the Gaddock and the Creation King here for Dark. It's not actually accomplishing anything. I guess technically it's a spellcaster for Celine, but I don't know how much that really matters. I'm going to go Witch Effect to pop and reborn the Gaddock here. That'll let me trigger the Mictlan and the Akihiron. So I get the Mace back and I get the Akihiron. And now I can climb into Celine, so I guess it did actually matter that I climbed into a Charmer. I go Saloon, bring back Witch because there's 3 spells. And now I can make a Griffin. And now I can put Griffin in the same column as the Akihiron, letting me discard the extra horse in my hand. And this will let me set either Bone Party or Fusion, and then the field spell can set the other one. Now this was a really cool play. I didn't think I would end with as much interruption as I did through all 3 of those hand traps. But, I mean, I'm glad it worked out in my favor. I linked the Griffin and the Gaddock off for Sequence. Sequence shuffles back the Gaddock and the Tatsu that I discarded in order to make Baphomet. This leaves a lot of live draws in my deck, which is good. The Baphomet is going to send the Sleepy. I know I have Bone Party in rotation. I set it off the Griffin. I know my field spell is going to get me a Fusion. Unless he has a Ghost Ogre, but then he's got 2 cards to play with into SP Griffin, so I'll be sitting in a good spot if that is the case. I link the Baphomet and Sequence in SP, banish my Griffin. Now I can bring it back at any time I want on his turn, which is phenomenal. I feel like I'm in a really strong spot here. And I have the Akihiron live to go, Bone Party pop, summon a guy, add a card back, make my Fusion live. Like, I'm in a very, very good position for being hand trapped 3 times. He ends up normal summoning a Drolly top decked and making a Typhon over top and then going battle phase. That's fine with me. He's going to try and hit over on my SP, but at the start of the battle phase, I can kind of start playing a little. I go activate Bone Party, pop my Akihiron. This is going to summon out a Witch from my deck, and now I can trigger a Witch as chain 1, the field spell as chain 2, and the Akihiron as chain link 3. The Akihiron is going to add back a Bone Party as follow-up, and then the field spell will reborn the sheep, and the Witch will search for a Dark Blade, I believe. Let's see if I do end up grabbing it here. Oh, it's for Gaddock, because now I can go sheep effect, which he droplets, but I mean, I'm able to just play through this pretty easily. It's droplets and smashers, so I can respond with SP. SP is going to banish my sheep to make sure I can resolve my Fusion, and that the Typhon is gone, and he just scoops it up from there. I'm playing more on his turn than he is. So on to game number 3. And he'll be going first again with Spright. He's going to start by going standby main, and then normal summoning a Swap Frog. This is going to send the Mirror Mage, getting the Ice Barrier Reborn spell, which is going to let him start his turn with a Toad on board. Phenomenal start for him, not looking great for me. I have an Imperm on my hand, but I really didn't want to Imperm a Swap Frog. It seems like not ideal against Spright. After making the Toad, he'll special blue from his hand. I'm going to chain Imperm here, because I'm thinking oh, I have to use it to clear the Toad anyways, and there's a chance this just stops his turn completely. But in hindsight, this was a really horrible play. It would have absolutely been better to hold it because, yes, he could just negate it with his Toad and get full combo anyways, as well as potentially using the Spright Trap, the Double Cross, to reborn the Toad anyways on my turn. And now he has an Imperm that's live that I just handed him for free. So he does end up negating my Imperm here. The blue resolves getting the Jet. He's going to add back the Swap Frog, but then he changes his mind and puts the Toad back. This makes me think, oh my god, I can't believe I just punted that hard. He's going to remake the Toad and have the Trap, and I have to play through it with one last card. So I'm sick right now. I'm thinking this is so bad. He continues playing, summon the Jetto, and this is going to add the Trap, just like I'm saying right now. It's really not looking good for me. And then he will go Talents to look at my hand, and I'm thinking oh, this is so bad. But then I remembered, the only card I've used is Imperm. I don't play any monster effects to use in the main phase, so I tell him yo, chill, that's not how that card works. And it's just a brain fart from both of us. Anyways, he continues on and links off into Sprint. Sprint sends Angler. Angler gets him 2 more bodies, and now he can. There's a slight sequencing misplay here, and I didn't really catch it until I was going over this replay myself. He overlays the 2 beavers for Gigantic. He's actually supposed to overlay with a beaver and a Sprint so that he has his link zone again, because the Gigantic is just going to end up summoning out Carrot, and then he's going to link the Carrot and the Sprint into the Silu Hat Rabbit. Can't do that because you can't use Sprint as link material the turn it's summoned or the turn you use an effect or something. But if he had just overlaid a beaver and the Sprint for the Gigantic instead, he'd have the extra beaver body to link into the rabbit, so it would be effectively in the same spot. That's why I don't think it really mattered in this game. If this was you know, a big event, obviously that would have made a difference because he wouldn't have been able to summon the Solo Hot Rabbit. Like, he wouldn't have had to take back that crazy. But anyways, he gets the rabbit, so I know he's got Azaroon, I know he's got my Imperm, I know he has Double Cross, and he's got a mystery set. So in his draw phase, he goes, you know, I'll Double Cross, bring back Toad, and then he remembered he didn't actually summon out the Toad again. He didn't end up getting to enough Aqua Bodies, so we just put that back face down, and he ends up just summoning the Azaroon instead. It doesn't, like, realistically matter that much that he didn't get the Toad again, because I had a Dark Ruler in my hand. I just got to avoid using the Dark Ruler completely because he didn't have the Toad, and, like, go for a kill line this turn. But if I did have to use the Dark Ruler, then I would have just, like, torn his whole board apart, put him on one card, and, like, a lot of interruption for him to have to play through. What ends up happening is I go standby main. I use Book of Eclipse to put the Azaroon back down, so I don't have to worry about that this turn. And it books the Gigantic. Now I can start my play with Special Summon Tatsu. I go Tatsu effect, and it ends up eating an Imperm. He makes a mistake here using his own Imperm when I already knew about the one in the different colored sleeve. But it's okay, because I still would have tried to play around that unknown being an Imperm anyways. That's what I thought it was. And that just confirmed that the only card, like, left in his hand, well, I guess he had one unknown and one talents that I know for sure because he tried to play it earlier. So that's really all I have left to play around on his turn. This turn I'm playing pretty much for free, other than the Double Cross potentially stealing a guy or attaching it or reborning a carrot. He Imperm my horse. I go activate Bone Party here. He changed the Double Cross in order to bring back his carrot. I think it probably would have been more beneficial to take my Tatsu. But I do believe did I pop the Tatsu? I did pop. Nope. I'm pretty sure I popped the Akihiron in my hand and leave the Tatsu as just an extra body. I double check his grave thinking, like, when I eat this next Imperm, if I can go for a Charmer line. And I believe that I'm able to because he has Darks engraved. So that's why I kill the Akihiron in my hand. This is going to summon out a Goblin from my deck. I'm pretty sure it's Goblin. I'm just kind of like weighing my options if it's worth a Dark Blade, because Dark Blade will eat the Imperm for sure. So let's see. What do I end up grabbing here? Oh, you know what? It might be Witch. Yeah, it is Witch. And I'm just going to hope that he doesn't use that Imperm on my Witch, assuming that the last card in my hand is live. And he doesn't, he ends up letting the Witch resolve. He's holding the Imperm for a more impactful negate. So the Witch here is going to add a Goblin. Could have added Dark Blade. That probably would have been better realistically, because it puts more names in rotation. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the Dark Blade is just going to become Goblin, so it didn't matter too much in this specific scenario. Now I know I have to force out my own Imperm that he stole, so I'm going to start link climbing. I'm going to link my two monsters off into Dark. I'll go Dark Effect to take just like the Jet or the Blue, whatever he's got engraved. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's Jet, because it just had the biggest attack. And then I'm going to, yeah, he's just asking to confirm what I added to my hand. I'm telling him what the Goblin's effect is, just so he knows if he has to waste his Imperm on my Dark. He lets the Dark go through. I don't know if he was really, like, aware of Selene lines being a thing, especially because I only had 2 spells engraved. So, you know, a lot of people forget that Selene gets counters for your opponent's spells as well. So he lets me take the Jet. SP's no problem. At least he won't die if I SP him. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make a Selene. And I go effective encounters, and that oh shit moment, like, pops in. It's like, I have to negate this. I'm like, alright, give me my Imperm back, and I'll normal summon Goblin. I'll go Goblin effect to Foolish a Gaddock and a Fusion. Yep. I'm just double checking that that's the play I want to make. Seeing if there's a line to get lethal, because I know he, yeah, he has no more interruptions, because the set is the Azaroon that's already turned off for the turn. But, yeah, I'm going to end up sending the Gaddock and the Fusion here. And then Gaddock will reborn itself. Oh, slipped some cards out there. Yeah. Gaddock will reborn itself, and then Gaddock will reborn itself, and so will Akihiron. Then I'll get to go Gaddock. I get to chain block my Akihiron, which is nice. I'll go Akihiron chain 1, Gaddock chain 2, add back fusion, and then I'll link off Gaddock and Celine for access code, and then I can just start access code pop 2. I'll go access code pop like the rabbit and the carrot or something. I need to clear this carrot before I can activate my fusion because it is still live. And so I'll just like pop those. The rabbit's kind of annoying because he can't die by battle, but it's not the end of the world. Now that there's no carrot, I can activate fusion, shuffling back the horse, the goblin, and my last monster, forget what it was, the Gaddock. It was the Gaddock. Summoning the king. The king will dump 3. It's going to dump Darkblade. It's going to dump... I'm just like checking, like how many names do I need to summon out the big guy and just go battle phase attack for game. And I'm really overthinking it because I can just go Akihiron, attack the Gigantic. It's only got 1600 defense, I'm pretty sure. And then attack for 53 and then attack for 3k, and that's game. I don't have to unnecessarily play in a nib. But instead, I'm going to fuck around and hopefully not find out that the last unknown in his hand is nib. I'll go activate the Fusion Engrave, pop the Akihiron, add Mictlan, and then the Akihiron will add back Fusion. I'm going to go activate my Creation King, popping itself, and the face down Gigantic. This will let me reborn off the Mictlan to grab the Darkblade from my graveyard, and then I can go... I'm just counting the names in my grave. I'll go Darkblade effect, summon up Mace. Mace effect is going to search the combined creation, I believe. Let's double check here that is what I grabbed. Oh no, it's a goblin for follow-up. Oh, the combined creation is already in the grave. I sent it off to Creation King. So it's going to add goblin as follow-up so that my eyes can't be targeted. And then I will shuffle back 5 to summon and then attack for game. And then that's it for round number 3. Alright, on to round 4. This is the final round. This is Memento versus Branded, and I lose the die roll by 1, which means I am going second. So my opponent is going to start off going, standby main. They're just going to pitch a Lubellion, and this is going to add a Sauriner to their hand. Yep, there's the Sauriner. Now they can go activate Albion effect. And this will send a Branded in Retribution to the grave for cost. I know they have Sauriner. They're probably getting to Branded Fusion this turn. It's not looking ideal for me. They get their Albion draw. And now they kind of think, what their next play is going to be. They just go normal summon a Luber. I have to impermate here and hope they have no way to get another light or dark into the graveyard. That way they can't summon the Sauriner, but they have Branded in High Spirits. So that's going to be able to discard the Sauriner, putting it into the graveyard, allowing them to also send a Titaniclad from their extra deck to the graveyard. He's just like kind of confirming that Titaniclad is the send here, which I agree with. Titaniclad is usually a pretty good send, especially when you are already going to get access to Albion. So the High Spirits here is going to add Kit, and then the Sauriner will get to trigger because it is now sent to the graveyard. This will send a Branded Fusion to the grave. He's just looking for it. Pesky to find it as a 1 of now, as opposed to when it was at 3. Anyways, so yeah, he'll send the Branded Fusion, banish the Retribution immediately to add it, and then activate it. That's just the next line of play. The Branded Fusion is going to use Albaz and Cartesia to make Albion. He already has access to Lubellion, so I mean, obviously there's no point in even sending a second if you play it. The Albion here is also going to activate its effect. Now he kind of thinks, do you make a Mirror Jade blind, or do you make a Borrowed Furious Dragon live? Now, if you're able to set up a way to summon the Mirror Jade anyways on your opponent's turn, then yeah, I guess the Borrowed Furious here is not bad. It's more well-rounded into more matchups. Against Malice, the Mirror Jade is really not accomplishing a whole lot. Anyways, yeah, Albion banishes Sauriner and Albaz to make the Borrowed Furious. Then he can tribute the Albion to summon the Lubellion. That'll place the Branded Lost from his deck. Then he can go set 1. He gets to summon Kit here first. Because he has a fusion that mentions Albaz, he gets to summon Kit, add the Retribution to his hand, and then he can just put it back to the bottom of his deck. just keeping it in rotation for a future play to get back branded fusion once again. Now he can set 1, go to his end phase. Here he gets to add back the Cartesia for free. And then he can trigger the Titaniclad. That will let him summon a Quem out from his deck. And then on summon, Quem can dump probably a copy of Albaz. I'm pretty sure that's what it just is, because that's like Quem into Albaz with Branded Lost Up is pretty strong. Yep, and he's just going to dump a copy of Albaz there. It's a little off screen, but that is what he sends. And I'm picking up Borreload Furious to read it, make sure that the play I'm kind of thinking of for my next turn is going to be possible. And the last effect is Albion setting branded in red. And with that, he's going to pass turn to me. I draw in a Sleepy, which is great because my hand was unplayable without it. I'm going to start by sending a card, hopefully making him think I'm on Malice, but I'm not, like, and he doesn't take the bait. He told me after he didn't take the bait at a previous locals and popped the first thing to play around the Malice like pro set, and it ended up being a Waking the Dragon, so he's trying to avoid having that happen to him twice, which is totally fair. I'd be kind of scarred about that too. Anyways, he didn't take the bait, so my next play is to go Foolish Burial Goods, sending Memento Fusion. I need a way to like pop the Sleepy and play. Now here, I'm thinking about using the Book of Eclipse and like forcing everything face down. This way I can guarantee my fusion resolves. But I'm like, well, if I save the Book of Eclipse for later, like he'll pop my guy when I go fusion effect, so that way I don't get the search. And like play into the talent, like I can abuse the talents harder by taking out of his monsters and using it to like deal with his other back row, but he has an Ash in his hand. So I get completely cooked by this. Now I can't even like, if I go, the other line of play here now after eating that Ash is to go activate Book of Eclipse and then talents take the Borreload Furious and then flip it up. But there's a lot of ways he can kind of play around that. Like if he just goes Chain Branded and Red to add Albaz, then he can, well, I guess if he fuses into a Mirror Jade, then I take the Mirror Jade and I can put a Typhon on top. So I guess at the end of the day, it was definitely better to activate the Book of Eclipse before the talents here. That way the talents take is more impactful than going talents to draw and hoping I draw into like fusion plus a name. Which I draw a name, I draw 2 names, but no fusion. So I really get cooked here. Like that Ash definitely should not have done as much as it did. But I mean, hindsight is 2020. I'm gonna like think for a second if there's anything I can do. And there's nothing, so I set this Book of Eclipse and go to my end phase. Now in my end phase, he's gonna start playing. After like the talents has been used, like he doesn't have to worry about anything. He goes Borreload, pop the Bellion in the new set because it's like clearly not a bait. That'll get rid of the Book of Eclipse, and then he can activate Branded in red, adding back the Albaz. This will let him fuse off the Albaz and the Aluber. I'm pretty sure is the banish here. He's just kind of thinking about how he's gonna summon out this Mirror Jade, but yeah, it's into Lubellion by banishing the Albaz and the Aluber. And then he can go Lubellion effect, pitch the Cartesia because it'll come back for free in about a second. And then Chainlink 2 is going to be the loss to search a Mercurier just as free follow-up negate. He'll shuffle back the Albaz and the Lubellion for Mirror Jade. And then trigger the Mirror Jade effect. And with that, like I sweep. There's nothing I can do. I'm not going to let him see what I set. Just because, well, I guess he knows what I'm on, so it didn't really matter that much. But yeah, that's it for game 1. On to game 2. Now we're on to game 2, and I get to start. I'll go standby main. There is no chummy, no problem. I'm going to lead with summoning out my Tatsu from my hand, and then I go effect, and he lets it resolve. Off to a great start. Now I know in game 1 he was on Ash, and I know he's playing Bestials, so I'm going to try to play around the Bestials as much as I can. I'm pretty sure that like the Branded and High Spirits like have like those builds have a higher density count of Bestials, so I'm gonna go right for Gaddock into Sleepy as my like first kind of line of play, and I'll go Gaddock effect to summon back, and then effect to add back Sleepy. I still haven't given him a chance to Bestial me, and I'm gonna try and avoid that for as long as I can until I'm in a more comfortable position. I'll go effect of the Sheep in my hand to summon, and then we'll fuse right away for Twin. And then I'll go Twin effect, And that's going to end up, he's just reading the 2 cards there. I go Twin Effect, he lets that go. Great. I'm going to pop this Mace in my hand. And that'll let me search for, I pop a Witch in my hand. And I add the Horn Dragon and I add Mace. Now I'd rather have the Mace in this specific situation than Witch. Because if I summon Witch, it's not really getting me to my fusion. And I want to avoid having to summon it out of the grave so I don't get rocked by Bestial. So now I'll activate my field spell, I'll normal summon my Mace, I'll go Mace Effect to pop. It's going to pop my Twin and add me a fusion. Then I'll get some triggers here. I'll go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 1 will be my field spell to Reborn, and Chainlink 2 will be the Twin to Reborn. So off of 1, I'm going to summon Witch. Off of the second one, I'm going to summon my Sheep. Now the Witcher can add a combined creation to my hand. And now I have a bunch of names to work with. So I have my fusion in my hand and I have a bunch of bodies on the field. I'm going to link away the Sheep and the Mace for Cross Sheep here. I'm just assuming at this point he's got no hand traps. He probably would have used a Bestial when I have my double chain link to summon there. But he didn't, so we're just going to play as if he has nothing. I'm going to activate Fusion, putting back Twin, Horse, and Mace. And this will summon a Creation King in the Cross Sheep zone. We'll go Chainlink 1 Cross Sheep, Chainlink 2 Creation King. This is going to make sure that we don't like set up any ways to give him an easy Bestial if he does like hypothetically still have one and he's holding it for something really important. We're going to send Akihiron, we'll put the Mace back because it's been used, and we'll send Darkblade. And then the chain will resolve and the Cross Sheep will summon out Darkblade. It can't be interacted with at that point, so you'll never be able to touch the Darkblade. Then we can go Darkblade effect, pop itself to summon out Goblin. This will trigger Akihiron, so Akihiron can summon itself. Then we'll go Fusion to pop and add Bone Party, and then Akihiron will add back the Fusion. So now we've got a bunch of follow-up in our hand, and we've got some link plays to do. Now we'll go Witch, target Gaddock, and go from there. We'll link off our... before linking off, I'm pretty sure I do go, Goblin effect, and it's going to pop my Fusion. We'll send some more names to the grave so that we have more follow-up and more interaction on our opponent's turn. Then we can link off both of those for a Yama. Then we can link both Yama and Cross Sheep off for Griffin. There's no spells or traps I want to set in my graveyard, so I don't have to worry about summoning first and playing into a hypothetical nib. After that, we can summon the Horn Dragon from our hand, link both of those into Sequence, and use the Sequence effect to fuse. Sequence is going to shuffle back the Cross Sheep and the Goblin in order to make Baphomet. And then Baphomet here is just going to send the Goblin right back to the graveyard. Now we can link both of those into SP. SP banishes the Griffin, and Griffin's pretty good against Branded. They don't really have any links, so aside from like Tactics Take to get arrows, there's really not a great way for them to go about it. In hindsight here, I should have summoned my SP in the other zone. It didn't really matter specifically where I summoned my combined creation this game, but I typically like to summon it in the far right zone just to play around a Moon of the Closed Sky, like linking off, using it as material, because it will stick on board for most of the game. Anyways, the Bone Party destroys the combined in our hand to add a Goblin, just as like follow-up interaction on our opponent's turn, like prevent targeting while we have like our board. And then we summon out the combined creation right after. We can't be nibbed because we have SP. I set 2, I set Droplet and Fusion, and then in the end phase, I get to set the Bone Party off of the Mictlan. So this is like a lot for him to play through, but he's going to give it a good try. He's going to go Stand by a Man here. Nothing in the draw phase for him to kind of play around with, like no Droll playing around or anything. And he will lead with Goldsark, banishing a Mercurier from his deck. This Mercurier is going to let him add Albion, which is going to let him play out the rest of his hand a little more effectively than he would be if he didn't have access to put an Albaz in his grave. So yeah, the next play is just to activate Albion, sending Albaz. This will get him another draw. It'll also let him be able to summon Cartesia out from his hand. And then his next play is to activate Opening. I haven't really given him an opportunity to activate an Imperm and like negate something. Like I'm holding this Griffin until he's committed to the board. I don't want to unnecessarily play into talents or into imperm. If he has droplet, he has droplet. I have 2 ways to get out this Griffin, so I can deal with him. I can deal with him dealing with it once. So he's gonna activate opening. I'll chain Bird from it here to get my Griffin. I have to summon it in a weird zone because I haven't used my combined creation to summon yet. So I'm either gonna lose out on all like the Memento interruptions, or I'm gonna give him 1 zone to play with. So I feel like it was more effective to give him 1 zone to play with. Like that's fine. I can deal with that. But he does have the talents. I was trying really hard to play around it. Can't play around it forever. He goes talents to take, and I could like chain fusion here to get rid of my Griffin, but because I have droplet, I can just let him take, and whatever he takes, I know that I'm still able to get the Griffin out again after, you know, like the chains are done resolving and there's no more quick effects. So yeah, he's taking the Griffin. I'm going to let him commit into the board more. I don't necessarily need to use my droplet yet. I don't know if he has any other plays. I'm kind of waiting for him to activate a fusion spell or something to capitalize. And here he normal summons a Luber. This is too good to pass up, so I'm going to go droplet, sending both a monster and a spell. This way I can start activating monster effects again, since I'll be negating the Griffin, and I'll be stopping him from getting more powerful engine cards like Branded Fusion. So now on a new chain, I'll get to trigger my combined creation. This will summon out my Creation King. We're making sure to play around the correct Griffin zones this time, putting it underneath my SP. Then he activates Branded Lost, and I know I need to start doing stuff before he's able to activate a fusion card. So I'll chain to the Branded Lost my effect to pop both my Creation King and the Griffin that he stole. This will destroy both of them, and I'll get a bunch of triggers here. I'm going to go Chainlink 1 my field spell to Reborn. Chainlink 2 is going to be, I believe it is Akihiron, and then Chainlink 3 will be Yama. No, it'll be Chainlink 2 Yama, Chainlink 3 Akihiron. And this is important because while Yama does Special Fiend, it also lets you pop on, like, after summoning. So I'll summon the Griffin and pop my Akihiron, and then off of the field spell, I'll summon the Horn Dragon. Now on a new chain, I'll get extra follow-up off of the Akihiron, adding back Darkblade. And I believe we did just forget to pop the Branded Lost there, because that should be gone. Or no, sorry, I didn't pop the Lost, I popped the Griffin. Now he's going to activate Branded Red, targeting the Albaz, but, I mean, there's a Griffin on the field, so anything he summons can't activate. Like, he can fuse for... The Belion one makes sense. Right now, the best option for him is to make Sanctifier Dragon, because I at least can't target it. But I do still have my fusion to make a Guardian Chimera and pop it anyways, because that's a non-target pop. So he's going to make the Albion, search off of his Branded Lost, and then realize that there's not really a point into continuing to play this game. Because, sure, he can out the Griffin, but then realistically, like, what is he doing after that? I'm not letting him get to his end phase with that Albion still on the field. I will deal with it one way or another. And even if I don't, I can just crash all my guys on my turn and then attack everything with the combined creation and, like, be in such a commanding position, like, the game's over. But anyways, that's it for game 2, and now we'll be on to the final game. Alright, and we're off to game 3, the last game of this video. I will be going second. He's going first with Branded. Standby phase, I'm going to activate Fuwa. Don't want to play it at talents if I don't have to. I have no other hand traps that I can activate in the main phase other than another Fuwa, so there's no reason not to shotgun this. And he's kind of thinking, like, he didn't ash it and he didn't call by it, so I know he's deciding if he wants to play into it or if he's just going to, like, try and pass on, like, a half board. Unfortunately for Branded, like, the half boards still play into Fuwa pretty hard. Like, even activating Branded Fusion just for Mirror Jade pass gives, like, 2 draws, which is not ideal. And so here he has to start with Fusion deployment, getting Cartesia. That'll give me the first draw. Then he'll normal summon a Luber. I didn't draw an Imperm, so I have to let that slide. The Luber's going to add Branded Fusion here. And I was trying to figure out how he can, like, most optimally build a board without giving me more draws. So he's going to activate the Branded Fusion, and he's going to send Albaz, and I believe he ends up sending a Mercurior in order to make Rimbrum. Now, Rimbrum's a pretty good interruption, and even if I clear it, it's still a graveyard interaction, so I feel like this is a pretty solid play, especially into Fuwalos. So yeah, he's just deciding, you know, making sure that this is the play he wants to make. Let's see. Okay, I guess he's deciding now if he wants to make Lubellion by sending Saronir. But I do think Rimbrum is the right play here, yet he sends Mercourier in order to summon out Rimbrum. And now, off of this draw, I drew into another Fua. So, like, his half board is not getting any better than what it is right now. He's going to go Cartesia effect next to Fuse, and I'll chain the second Fua. Because of the way my hand is, even if he has the talents to punish this, it's not going to end up mattering. So I get 2 draws off this Dusk Dragon, and he'll go effect to send. That's fine. Didn't draw an Imperm once again. I just have a ton of engine and non-engine in my hand. More so breakers than Imperms, obviously, because I feel like it would have been a pretty good way to stop his turn from continuing right here. So he's thinking about what he wants to send. I'm pretty sure he ends up sending Titaniclad, which is not bad. I think because if he already has Branded in red, then it doesn't make sense to send Albion, because what else are you setting? It's not really ideal to set like Branded Retribution. Yeah, you can, but it's kind of awkward to use sometimes, especially if you don't have 2 names in the grave. Like, you don't want to be shuffling back your face of Brimbrum, because then you kind of have to pick which interruption you're using. So he does have the talents to punish the second Fua, but he's going to look at my hand, and you can see it's like 2 Darkblade, so taking 1 doesn't matter. 2 Foolish Burial Goods, taking 1 doesn't matter. The field spell, I have 10 million ways to search, and then he's basically choosing if he wants to give me Bone Party or Goblin Breakout. And Bone Party is definitely the better one to take, but I will have a way to search it in my combo as long as I'm able to play with the 1 Darkblade. He sets 1, and because he sent Titaniclad, I am pretty positive that it's branded in red that's face down. In the end phase, he'll add back Cartesia off its own effect, and then he's going to use Titaniclad. He's going to add the Quem instead of summoning it and giving me 2 more draws, which I think is correct. It's definitely not worth giving me 2 draws to put an Albaz in grave, when you already have one especially. So here I'm just kind of confirming what's in his graveyard. He's got an Albaz in there. I'm going to go standby main, and the first thing I'm going to do is go normal summon Darkblade, pitch the other Darkblade, and pop what I assume is branded in red. And he's deciding if he wants to chain it or not. He's reading Darkblade. He knows it's got 2 pop effects. 1 is to pop his card and 1's to pop mine. So I think he's just thinking if he has a play, if he activates the branded in red, realistically what's he going to make? And he opts to not chain the branded in red. He's saving the Albaz as a possible interruption if the Rimbrum leaves the field. But unfortunately for him, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to try and play as much as I can without committing my Foolish Burial Goods, because I don't have fusion access right now. I'll go effect of my Darkblade to summon a Witch from deck. I'm going to go chain like 1 Witch to search. He's going to chain his Dusk Dragon. This is how he's going to get his Quem into rotation. So I get to resolve my Witch before he gets a chance to send off of his Quem. Off of this Witch, I'm going to add a Tatsu to my hand. Now I know for sure I'm going to be able to play, which is obviously quite good for me. And now off of this Quem, he's just going to send a branded opening, making sure that he can keep his Rimbrum alive if I do have a way to force like popping it or something. So now my next play is going to be activating my Mictlan. And now I'm going to go summon my Tatsu from my hand and then use the effect to pop. So this Tatsu is going to send Mace, Goblin, and Sheep. Now I can trigger my field spell in order to summon back a level 4 or lower. That's going to give me my Mace back. Playing around Bestials as best I can because the field spell does not target. Now I can go Mace to pop itself, getting my fusion. And now I can use the Foolish Burial Goods without having to worry about getting fusion access. So I can go Goods to send the copy of Blackout Laughs. This will effectively turn off his Rimbrum when I decide to use it. But there's one more check. He is on hand traps, so I gotta make sure he doesn't have a bell in his hand. I activate my fusion, he lets that go. I go, okay, I'll check my Blackout, call Rimbrum. I'm not gonna forget about it, don't worry. I'll shuffle back 3. I think it's 2 Darkblade and the Horse is what I put back or something like that for my Creation King. Now I can go King, Foolish 3. Looking at my hand, double checking what I want to send here. I'm pretty sure it is just Akihiron, Gaddock, and something else. Let's see. He's, that was what he was deciding. He was deciding what to reborn off the Quem as Chainlink 2. So, if he had reborn Albaz there, I have the quick effect pop to make him go -1, and he recognized that, so he just got Mercourier back. I sent Akihiron, Gaddock, and Combined Creation off my Creation King, and now I trigger the Gaddock here to bring itself back. He negates it with Mercurior, but I have the Witch already on field to reborn the Gaddock anyways. So I go Witch Destroy itself to summon Gaddock. Gaddock will add back the Sheep. The Sheep lets me summon itself and fuse into Twin, and now I'm kind of just going through the motions. I feel like I've played through everything. I know he has Quem Cartesia in hand, so he's got nothing else going on for me to worry about. I add Darkblade and Tattoo here just as follow-up because I can. Like, I don't really need more. I sided out my Horned Dragon since I was going second, and I already have the Combined Creation in rotation. So after the Twin is popped, I get to summon back Akihiron and Goblin off of the Twin effect. The Akihiron lets guys attack directly. That effect activates. I'll go Banish Fusion to pop the Akihiron, add Bone Party, and then I just shuffle back 5 and I have game. So that's it for the last round. I hope you guys all enjoyed this really long video. It took me forever to kind of like commentate over everything. So I hope it was helpful, especially if you're newer to Memento. I feel like it helps a lot to hear the reasoning behind all of the plays I make each turn. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.